Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening. National is promising to get tough on gangs with harsher sentences for gang members. Christopher Luxon says gang membership would become an aggravating factor when it comes to sentencing, meaning convicted gang members would likely face a longer time behind bars. But Labor says the provision already exists and that National is just pretending to be tough. Zane Small reports.
Mongrel mob members en masse. Hundreds gathered in the Bay of Plenty town of Opotiki earlier this week for the funeral of Barbarian President Stephen Taiatani. Some schools were closed, the police swarmed in. And once again, gangs are back in the political spotlight.
Gang members effectively came and took control of an entire town. And I have to say, that is not the New Zealand that we want to see.
Christopher Luxon was in central Auckland today announcing that gang members under a national government would face harsher punishments for their crimes.
That when a gang member is convicted of a crime, the judge is required to consider the fact that they are a gang member, and that will likely mean a tougher sentence for their offending.
Christopher Luxon says this complements National's gang policy announced last year, which includes a ban on gang patches in public spaces, preventing gang members from gathering in public spaces or accessing firearms, and preventing gang offenders from associating. But Labor says there's nothing new about Luxon's policy.
Christopher Luxon has embarrassed himself by making a gangs announcement that is already law.
Though right now it's only an option, not mandatory.
That's a fair point, but I see that as a tweak at the margins.
She argues the government is tough on crime. Opotiki police told AM this week that new wide-ranging laws aimed at gangs actually helped them to seize weapons and crack down on crime after the procession.
The new legislation's working.
Police got expanded ability to seize illegal assets, additional search powers to find and seize weapons from gang members, and a new charge for discharging a gun with intent to intimidate.
Yes, now and again they'll come up with something slightly tougher, but then the next week they're back to giving $3 million to gang associates to do meth rehab, and their overall focus is to reduce the prison population.
Kawerau District Councillor Warwick Godfrey is a former mongrel mob member.
It appears that the National Party is just taking this time as an opportunity with the news to do the dog whistle, and it's a bit sad because there's a family mourning the loss of their loved one.
Christopher Luxon rejects that.
We want to make sure that we protect and look after the rights of the rest of New Zealand that are dealing with the inconvenience and the intimidation of gangs.
Upping his anti-gang rhetoric as the election looms.
And Zane joins us now. Kia ora, Zane. What are other parties proposing to do about gangs?
Well, New Zealand First leader Winston Peters says his gang policy is to outlaw them completely and designate them as terrorists. I put that to Christopher Luxon today to see if he'd ever consider that, but he said he hadn't given it much thought. The police minister, though, gave a flat-out no and said there are laws that exist that police can use if they want to crack down on gangs. The police minister, another topic that was covered today was youth crime and retail crime. Christopher Luxon did a tour of several retail businesses in central Auckland today, and it was a topic that came up a lot amongst them since we've seen that rise in the likes of aggravated robberies and ram raids. Christopher Luxon says he's still committed to that policy National announced last year, which is to roll out military boot camps for young offenders aged between 15 and 17, and that policy is expected to cost $25 million a year.
All right, tēnā koe, that's Zane Small.